And what's amazing is how many of my colleagues will just admit, I just need a cover vote. We're not a town, we shouldn't be here for cover votes. We should be here to win. There is no second place for freedom. We got to go fight for it.
Hey guys, it's Phil with the Gun Owners of America, and today we have a very special guest, Congressman Roy. He's someone that we've talked about a lot on our channel, and specifically, the two of us are going to have a conversation today about the National Defense Authorization Act, otherwise known as NDAA, and the introduction and then removal of red flag laws. There was a lot of controversy and discussions about red flag laws being in and then taken out in what's called conference. We're going to talk about that a little bit today over this short conversation. Congressman Roy, thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, good to join you. It's always great to be a part of anything involving Gun Owners of America.
So the first and most obvious question is, were you aware of any promise to take out red flag gun confiscation in the conference process?
Well, this is one of those great misnomers out there that some are peddling as being, the inevitability of removing something that is a direct assault on our constitutional rights. And so I take a step back, okay? Forget whether there's a promise. Forget whether there's any indication that something like that was going to occur. And for the people out there to understand how this works, the National Defense Authorization Act is brought forward every Congress, right? Every time we bring it every year to authorize defense. Now, it's really important for those of us who support our military, and we all do. But it can't be a Christmas tree bill, which is what too many people in this town allow it to become. Put anything you want on the NDAA and you can pass it. So now in this context, it's like, well, we have red flag laws in there. Now let's back up. A year ago, 108 Republicans voted for red flags to be included in the NDAA. Fast forward to this year, same thing, the red flag provisions in the bill. And we're told, don't worry, we're going to take that out in conference. Well, first of all, we never got to conference. Second of all, you don't know if you'll ever get to conference. You don't know what the Senate will do. So under no circumstances should you vote for something that's an unconstitutional infringement of your gun rights. That's the starting place. And so I was aware of no actual promise, but I don't really care if there was a promise. The fact is, when you have a bill in front of you, you don't say, oh, don't worry, there's a provision in this bill that says the government's going to come confiscate my house, but they'll take it out in conference. No, sorry, I'm going to vote against that. Just like we should have opposed loudly the red flag provisions.
Do you think there's some members of the House and Senate GOP that actually like red flag gun laws?
Well, it's hard not to go look at some past rhetoric by a number of my colleagues indicating support for red flag provisions. I think people have a misunderstanding about what they actually are, right? They sound touchy-feely to some people, saying, well, someone's mentally challenged, they're having some issues or emotionally having issues, and we want to go make sure that they can't use a weapon. Well, we all, as human beings, want to make sure that people who need help can go get help. What we don't want is to have the force of government come in and target people's ability to use and have their weapons because somebody just makes a claim and you have no due process. You have no ability to say, wait, this is my constitutional right. But too many Republicans just throw their hands up and go, well, this is just a reasonable way to go about this problem. There are many Republicans who believe that, and I think that's part of behind why they didn't really care that the red flag provisions were in there. But Gun Owners of America stood up, a number of us in Congress stood up, and we fought to make sure the American people knew it, and we forced it out along with a number of other onerous provisions.
Yeah, you actually wrote a letter you titled it Dear Friends, and you wrote it to just basically everybody who had your back in this fight. And I think the only gun group that you called out in there for their help was Gun Owners of America, which sort of leads me to my next question. What's it like to get sort of that grassroots support from, the folks out there? Obviously, you're here fighting the fight, and, all the good guys in this town do trust you to always have, the side of the American people. But what's it like to be able to, activate millions of people to call their congressmen and their senators to say, don't support bad gun control?
Yeah, well, let me focus on two things here. Number one, Gun Owners of America and their relentless and appropriate and committed focus on defending our Second Amendment rights. There are a lot of organizations out there that advocate in the name of guns. Gun owners, they go to the mat for our rights, and we should all thank them for that. But secondly, looking directly at the people, we can't win the fights without the American people. We can't. People look, Congress, what are you doing? I said, well, doing everything I know how to do to fight for the people I represent and to fight for the Constitution and limited government and to protect our rights. But if we don't have the people burning down the phones, too many of these, my colleagues, on both sides of the aisle, frankly, will just relent and say, well, that's okay. We can do that. And this is why we have $30 trillion of debt. This is why the government keeps growing. I laugh. All my colleagues run, especially Republicans, on limited government and lowering, cutting spending. Every bill we bring to the floor increases government, increases spending, makes government more powerful to interfere in our lives, empowers the FBI, for example, to go after parents that are talking at school boards. So in this case, or for, say, ATF being able to come after our guns, we should stop doing that. And so we need the people to do that. And we did that here. The people spoke on multiple issues, drafting our daughters, vax mandates, and importantly, in this case, red flag laws.
One of the things that seem to upset people who are on the wrong side of this issue so much is that folks at home were calling, burning down the phones, and like holding them accountable. Mm-hmm. There seem to be like some hurt feelings about some of these members of Congress who were saying like basically like, it sounded like to me, don't worry, you rubes at home. I was part of some smoky backroom deal, and I know that my vote here doesn't actually matter because on the back end, it's going to be taken out. That's really tone deaf, especially when right now, like voters across the country are trying to get more engaged, and yet the response from these members was, no, get less engaged and just trust me. As someone like yourself who wants a lot of oversight for members of Congress, what's that sound like to you when a member of Congress will say, don't have oversight of me, don't challenge me on why I do something?
Well, it's exactly wrong. I mean, right now we're all going through the primary season, and people file and they run in primaries, and I say, great, that's good. I'll put my record up against anybody, and I'm happy to go run. Our job here is to represent the people. People sometimes use governing. We don't govern. We represent, and we need to represent the people. Now, we don't have a direct democracy. We as members are supposed to step up and do some things to defend the Constitution and make sure that we're being even in the House, the cooling saucer, right? And in the Senate, the sort of bigger cooling saucer. But what members of Congress hate the most is when the truth is exposed about what's in a bill and the American people see it and then their phones burn down. They hate it if they're on the wrong side of the issue. I saw that when I was a staffer. And we were going through the first rounds of debate on immigration and border security in 2007 and 8, again in 2012-13 when I worked for Senator Cruz, when we were fighting on defunding Obamacare. The immigration issues 2 or 3 years ago in 2018. These things are all things that when you look at the bill, the healthcare debates, you peel it back and you go, well, here's what's actually in the bill. Mm-hmm. And then they go, oh, well, but I know best. This bill's good for America. Wait, hold on a second. You're telling me this bill is good for America because it's a Defense Authorization Act. So I must support it because it has a pay raise for troops. But I have to support a red flag law. I got to support continuation of vax mandates. I got to support drafting my daughter. I got to support more money for Department of Defense with no accountability for Afghanistan. Continuing to train people about climate change. Continuing to train people about woke diversity issues and CR critical race theory. No. Let's stand up and actually create a National Defense Authorization Act that builds a Department of Defense that kills people and destroys things and does it well and used limitedly.
One of the things you talked about in your letter that you addressed to friends who were supporting you is the importance of creating leverage, and how when a lot of members voted against the NDAA, it gave you, the guy on the front line, a lot of leverage to pull out the draft our daughters, to pull out the gun confiscation and other stuff you didn't like. That's something we talk a lot about on the channel. It's a little bit, pulling back the curtain about how Washington works. Yep. Can you tell folks at home how important is it to create leverage by not voting for bad stuff so you can take it out on the back end? How does someone like you use leverage to your advantage?
Well, this is my general philosophy about how to get things done in this town, and getting things done is usually stopping bad things or trying to figure out how to cut back on government, right? So that's my starting place. My operating theory is we have to fight every fight in order to continue to build the momentum to win the bigger fight. We are so far away from winning the fights that we as conservatives want to win, to make sure that we shrink government, that we minimize government's role in our lives. Every time we do this, for example, this Defense Authorization Act, had we just sat back, had gun owners not engaged, and had we just let this pass with 15 no votes, those of us who vote against big government regularly, and not driven those numbers up, that would not have given us the leverage to make changes in the Senate. That's how this works. You build those numbers up. You start to create a sense that, wait a second, we could actually do this. Then you get to the Senate, and then all you need is a couple of senators to start changing the game, and that's what we did here. You get enough voices in the House, you get the Senate to do what they're supposed to do, then we can actually change things in this town.
I don't think we have too much time left on the clock, but one last question for you. Right after you guys took this original vote in the House that had the red flag confiscation in it, I don't know, over 100 members then signed a letter demanding that red flag be taken out in in the version that came back. So my question to you is, if there was already a deal to take out red flag gun confiscation, why would this letter by the same members who voted for the NDAA with confiscation in it even be necessary? So which is it? Was there a promise, or did the letter that they send, get it out of the final version?
Yeah, I can't remember if I even signed that letter. I remember my initial thought was I don't want to sign that letter, because why would I be asking for something that we should have just killed in the House? And people in the Senate know what I think about it. That's a great question, and it's a perfect example of what's wrong with this town. People want cover votes, right? Right now today, we're going to have the Senate vote on a party line vote to raise the debt ceiling. They did it after 14 Republicans worked with Democrats to blow up the filibuster, one time only, they say, in order to give the Democrats the power to raise the debt ceiling. And then Republicans saying, oh, it's good that we're raising the debt ceiling so we can avoid a crisis, but I'm going to vote no on the debt ceiling because I wrote a letter a few months back. That is a perfect example of how this town works. That letter is a perfect example. I'm going to vote for the National Defense Authorization Act. Oh, but I'll send a letter so I can go say, I tried to get that out. They don't really care if it gets out or not. They just want to have a cover position. And what's amazing is how many of my colleagues will just admit, I just need a cover vote. We're not a town, we shouldn't be here for cover votes. We should be here to win. There is no second place for freedom. We got to go fight for it.
Well, it's like you said, you have to fight every fight.
Yep.
I'll say on behalf of GOA, our members, supporters, we're lucky that you came in today to talk a little bit, and we're grateful for your time.
Now, I'm grateful for GOA. Thank you very much.